Alright, a very warm welcome back everyone. Today I want to talk about group tracks and VCA-Faders, and I'm doing this simultaneously because usually group tracks and VCA-Faders do not differ that much. However, VCA-Faders are only available in Cubase Pro. The group tracks are available in the other Cubase versions as well, so you could easily follow along with the group tracks in this case. I've prepared a project of mine again, and we'll take a quick listen to these 4 bars. And afterwards we'll talk about the group tracks. In this case I want to talk about the pads, but I'm not soloing them now. Instead we'll do that later on. Alright, so this is what we are working with right now. So we want to create group tracks in 2 different ways here. So the first one would be the more easy one, and the second one would be a little bit more difficult. But if I first show you the mixing console as it is right now, you see that we have these 4 pads which are routed to this group pads channel, as you can see here. And if I'm now adding or changing my group track, this will change as well. So we are not routing to group pads anymore, but to a different group that we are going to create right now. And this is very important. We'll get to this in a different video again, but just keep that in mind, that you only have one signal path of your signal through Cubase, through your stereo out bus. So what I'm going to do is I've marked these tracks. I'm going to do a right click, add track, and then group channel to selected channels. I'm going to have to give this a name, and in this case I'm going to for group test. I mean, it doesn't really matter how I'm calling this. And what you see now in the mixing window is that the routing of these 4 tracks has changed in order to get those to the group test track or group test bus, and not to my group pad bus, right? So what would happen now if I'm moving this fader, you should hear that the pads get quieter or louder whenever we are playing back the signals here. So if I'm just soloing the pads, this is what they would sound right now when we are when we have the group test fader set to 0 decibels, and this is what would happen if I'm actuating this now. Maybe make this a little bit louder. You can now hear that the group or all of these pads get quieter or louder whenever I'm moving this fader, right? So this is the first option you can do, or of how you can add these group tracks. And there is a second option as well, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then we'll also talk about what these group tracks can actually do for us. So unsolo the pads again and delete this group test. What happens now is that also this routing here for these 4 pads is set to no bus, so we have to do the routing ourselves if we want to do the more difficult version, which I'm going to show you now. So instead of going right click, add track, group track, or add a group channel to selected channels, we can also add the group track here, or if you want to do the hard way, you can also go here to the add track menu, group track, and then create another group track here, which in this case would be completely out of function because we do have nothing routing into here. So if we just bring this E up here, you can see that this is our channel settings page. You have no source, but we are routing out to our master bus, right? So we are going to change this now. These are the 4 pads we are working with again, and the first thing I could do is hold Shift and Alt, so to bring the quick link up, and then I'm going to go on no bus here and change this to group test, which will change all of these channels, and they are going to be routed to the group test here, right? So this is one way you can do the routing yourself. The second way would be do this for every single track in the mixing window, of course, and the third way would be to do this on the channel page. So again, I'm going to the channel settings here, and then you see that you have the inputs, and here you have the outputs. So you would have to set this to group test if you want this pad to be played back on the group test channel, right? So and again, we do have the same procedure as we had before. If I'm now soloing everything and I'm moving my fader, first let's make this a little bit louder, and then I'm moving the fader for group test again, you hear that everything gets louder or quieter when I'm moving this fader. So this is all well and good. Now the second part of this video is of course the VCA-Faders, and if you watch closely, you see that you have a VCA fader already here. I'm going to show you how you set this up in just a second. Just a quick reminder on how these VCA faders work. If I'm now moving this one, you have a link between the VCA faders and the channels you are talking about, and you can actuate how these how high the volume for each of these channels is based on which channels are linked to the VCA fader, right? So if I'm moving this to 0 decibels, this is the mix, or the so to say, the mix on how these pads would work together. And if I'm now applying these VCA faders with, let's say, -1 dB, you should see that -1 dB is added to each of these each of the loudness levels for each of these tracks, right? And this is how VCA faders work. So in order to create those, of course, there is the easy way again. You go here, then you go add track and the VCA fader, which in this case would not work because we do have a VCA fader already prepared here. But if I'm now removing this, no, I do not want to keep anything. Let me just remove those here, and also the VCA fader link as well. So in order for us to basically be able to remove this fader, you can see that there is no functionality now here for the VCA fader. As you can see also that we don't have any routing or pre-section or equalizer or anything else. The VCA faders are only used for loudness, for loudness stuff. And now if you want to recreate this, I'm just making sure that we do not have any VCA faders attached here. I'm going the easy way again, right? But this would create a VCA fader again. You can see it here. We have another link. And if I'm going to, hopefully I can just undo this. And now if we go the hard way, we would have to add another VCA track, of course. Give this a name, VCA test, for example. And then you have to do the linking yourself. You've seen that we have links already. In this case, we had link 1 and link 2. But in this case, we can use one of these links and then add our tracks to this link, and then you should see that we are able to use this VCA fader again in order to actuate all of these tracks. So now the question is, what is the difference? Of course, VCA faders are only allowed to basically actuate the loudness levels, and group tracks can do something different. So in this case, you can also load inserts on your group tracks, which makes it a little bit easier to, for example, apply reverbs or delays on the whole group setting and not on particular channels. But on the other hand, you have the problem that if you're working with groups, you are not able to perform these actions on the particular channel. So you are a little bit more limited in a way that you can set up your inserts. But this should not be a problem because, of course, you can load inserts on your particular track as well, and then add some more inserts on the group as well. But the important thing to notice is that the group channels actually, as the name suggests, group the information, and therefore you can basically think of your whole, let's say, pad section, for example, the whole bass section, the whole drum section with one fader, and then you only have to move this fader if you want to raise or lower the volume, for example, or if you want to do some adjustments there.